The dust on the surface of the quiet planet moved like slow waves under the pale light of a distant sun. The world had no name, only a number in an old human star map that few people still used. It was far from trade routes, far from colonies, and far from danger, or so most explorers believed. For one lone human traveler, this place was just another point on a long list of forgotten worlds. He walked across the dry land with steady steps, his boots leaving deep marks in the soft ground. The air was thin but safe to breathe, carrying the faint smell of cold stone and old wind. His suit was light, made for long journeys and hard work, not for battle. He was not a soldier. He was a seeker, someone who searched for lost signals, broken machines, and the stories of people who once passed through places like this. His scanner rested in his hand, glowing with soft blue lines that moved across its screen. Most of the time it showed nothing. Flat lines, empty space, and the quiet hum of his own breathing. He had grown used to that. Silence was part of the job. Still, he kept walking, driven by a simple belief that somewhere out there something always waited to be found. The ground rose into small hills made of hard rock and fine dust. As he climbed one, the scanner gave a short, sharp sound. He stopped at once, heart beating a little faster. He checked the screen. A faint signal pulsed beneath the surface, weak but steady. It was not natural. It was old, shaped by hands, not by wind or time. He looked around. The land was empty in every direction. No buildings, no towers, no signs of life. Just the sky above and the dust below. The signal came from under his feet. He set down his pack and pulled out a small digging tool. It was not powerful, but it was enough to break through the soft layers of dirt and stone. He worked slowly, careful not to damage whatever lay beneath. The sun moved across the sky as he dug, its light turning from pale white to soft gold. After a long time, the tool struck something solid that did not feel like rock. He brushed away the dust with his hands. A smooth metal surface appeared, dark and cold, marked with faint lines that looked like symbols. They did not match any language he knew. They curved and crossed in strange ways, like they were meant to be felt rather than read. The container was larger than he expected, about the size of a small storage chest. Its surface was warm, not hot, but alive with a gentle heat that surprised him. He placed his palm against it and felt a faint vibration, like a slow heartbeat. He leaned back on his heels and stared at it. This was not debris. This was not a simple machine. This was something placed here on purpose. As the light faded and the sky grew darker, the temperature dropped. The wind picked up, carrying fine dust that brushed against his suit. He stood and looked around, considering his options. He could leave it buried, mark the location, and report it when he returned to a station. That would be the safe choice. Then he heard it. At first, it was so soft that he thought it was the wind slipping through the rocks, a faint sound, low and uneven. He froze and listened. The sound came again, clearer this time. It did not come from the air. It came from the container. He stepped closer, heart pounding. The sound rose and fell, like a broken voice trapped behind thick walls. It was not a language he understood, but it carried a feeling that needed no translation. Fear, loneliness, a call for help. He swallowed and placed his hand back on the metal surface. The vibration grew stronger. The sound became sharper, like something inside was pushing against the limits of its prison. He took a slow breath. He had faced storms, broken ships, and empty worlds. But this was different. This was a choice. Humans had spread across the stars for many reasons. Some went for wealth. Some went for power. Some went to escape their past. But deep down, there was another reason, one that explorers like him carried in their hearts. Humans did not like leaving questions unanswered. They did not like turning away from voices in the dark. He decided to move the container. It was heavy, but not impossible to lift with the help of a small gravity harness from his pack. He secured it carefully and guided it across the dust toward his base, a simple structure made of metal panels and a small power core. The walk felt longer than before, the sound from the container growing louder with every step, like it knew it was being taken somewhere new. Inside the base, the light was warm and steady. He set the container in the center of the room and closed the door behind him. The wind and cold were shut out, leaving only the soft hum of the power system and the strange sound from the metal box. He circled it slowly, studying every line and curve. The symbols seemed to shift when he looked at them from different angles, like they were made to catch the light in a special way. He activated a small camera and began recording, speaking his thoughts out loud for the log. "This is not human-made," he said in a calm voice. "Material unknown. Heat source internal. Signal still active." The sound from inside grew clearer. It was still not words, but it was closer now, like a voice trying to break through a wall of water. He connected a power cable from the base to a port he found hidden beneath one of the symbols. The moment the connection was made, the container's surface lit up. Lines of soft light traced the shapes of the markings, turning them into glowing paths. The room filled with a gentle glow. The sound changed. It became sharper, more focused. He felt a chill run down his back. He moved to his workbench and pulled out old data chips filled with alien language records. Over the years, humans had gathered pieces of many tongues from many worlds. Most were incomplete, but sometimes they were enough. He fed the data into a small translator program and linked it to the container. The system worked slowly, scanning patterns, matching sounds, and building meaning, one piece at a time. The voice from the container broke into something closer to words. "Is someone there?" it said, the sound uneven, but clear enough to understand.
He stepped back, stunned.
He had heard alien voices before through recordings and distant signals, but never like this. Never so close. Never so real.
"Yes," he said, his own voice steady even though his hands shook.
"You are not alone." There was a pause. Then the voice came again, softer this time.
"I have waited," it said, "so long." He pulled a chair closer and sat down, keeping his eyes on the glowing container. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am a traveler," the voice replied, "from a world far from here. I was taken, sealed, left." The words came slowly, as if the speaker had to push each one through layers of old systems and fading memory. "Who took you?" he asked. "Those who feared," the voice said. "They studied. They tested. They locked me away when they were done. Then they vanished." He felt a knot form in his chest. The idea of being trapped for so long, buried under a silent world, was hard to imagine. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "Time is hard to measure," the voice said. "Longer than my people count." He leaned back and looked at the ceiling of the base. He had come here looking for old machines and forgotten signals. He had found a living story instead. "I will help you," he said without thinking. There was another pause. This one felt different, heavier. "Helping me may bring danger to you," the voice said. "This container is more than a prison. It is a call." He sat up straight.
A call to who? To those who built it, the voice replied, and to others who listen for such things. He moved to the scanner and checked the signal output.
The container was still sending a faint pulse into space, like a quiet beacon. "Can it be turned off?" he asked.
Not easily, the voice said. The systems are old, changed. I do not control them.
He ran a hand through his hair and paced the small room. Leaving the container buried would have been safer. But now he could not ignore what he had heard. There was a being inside, aware, afraid, and hopeful. He stopped and faced the container again. "Tell me about your world," he said. "While I work." The voice seemed to brighten at the question. "My world has wide skies," it said. 3 suns that rise and fall in slow dance. The ground is soft and green, and the air carries the sound of water that moves without end. As the voice spoke, he imagined the place, a living world full of light and motion, so different from the silent planet outside his base. He opened his tools and began to study the container's systems. The design was complex, built with layers of security and power lines that looped back into themselves. It was not meant to be opened. It was meant to last. As he worked, the voice continued to share memories. Cities made of crystal and stone. People who traveled between stars as easily as humans moved between cities. Songs that were sung under open skies. Each word made the task in front of him feel heavier and more important. He found a section of the system that controlled the signal. It was tied to the same power source as the lock. If he cut one, he risked triggering the other. A warning light on his console flickered. A small spike in the signal. Something out there might have noticed. He took a deep breath and focused. He was good at this. Years of fixing broken ships and strange machines had taught him patience. The voice fell silent for a moment. Then it spoke again, quieter than before. "Why do you help me?" it asked. He paused, his hands resting on the tools. He thought about the long road that had brought him here. The empty worlds, the old ruins, the feeling of being small in a very large universe. "Because I can," he said simply. "And because no one should be alone in the dark?" The container's glow softened, as if it understood. Outside, the night sky stretched wide and full of distant stars. Somewhere among them, signals moved, ships traveled, and stories waited to be told. Inside the small base on a forgotten world, a human and an alien voice shared a moment of quiet hope. The work was far from done. The danger was still out there, listening. But for now, there was light in the room, and a promise in the air that this story would not end in silence. The soft light inside the small base never went fully dark. It hummed in a slow, steady rhythm, like a quiet promise that life still moved forward even on this forgotten world. The human explorer sat near the glowing container, his tools spread across a metal table. He had not slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, the sound of the trapped voice echoed in his mind. Outside, the pale sun rose again, casting long shadows across the dust and stone. The world looked peaceful, almost gentle. But he knew better now. Somewhere in the wide space above, signals traveled. Something might be listening. He stood and stretched his stiff arms, then walked back to the container. The glowing lines on its surface were softer than before, but still alive. The faint vibration under his hand felt like a slow, careful breath.
"Are you still there?" he asked. "Yes," the voice replied.
It sounded clearer than the day before, stronger, like the system was learning how to speak through the human's translator. "I did not rest.
I cannot rest. He nodded even though the voice could not see him.
I will keep working, he said. I found the part that controls the signal, but it is tied to the lock. If I break one, the other might react.
That is how they built it, the voice said. They wanted no escape without a call. The explorer frowned.
Then we need to trick it, he said. Make it think the signal is still on while we shut it down. He pulled a small datapad closer and began to map the energy flow inside the container. Lines of light on the screen showed where power moved, where it gathered, and where it split. The design was not human, but the rules of energy were the same everywhere. Power had to go somewhere. Information had to move through something. As he worked, the voice spoke again. My people used to say that humans were dangerous, it said. He paused. Dangerous how? Strong, the voice replied. Curious, always moving forward. Some fear that you would never stop. He smiled faintly. Sometimes we don't, he said, but that's not always a bad thing. The voice seemed to consider this.
You dig through silent worlds, it said. You listen to old machines.
You hear a voice in the ground and choose to stay. That is not what I was told about humans. 87 was completed when the device of the passing night. 4 years passed. He did a double take, noting her long tan legs and jet black hair that flowed. As he lay back in his chair, the scanner on the wall gave a quiet beep. He stood quickly and checked the screen. The signal from the container had changed. It was still weak, but it had shifted, like something was pushing against it from far away. Something noticed, he said under his breath. What does that mean? The voice asked. It means we don't have much time, he replied. He moved faster now, his hands steady but quick. He built a small loop device from spare parts, something that could catch the signal and feed it back into the container, creating the illusion that it was still sending a call even if the real signal was blocked. It was risky. If it failed, the system might react in ways he could not predict. He connected the loop to the container's control port. The glowing lines on the surface flickered. The room's lights dimmed for a moment, then returned to normal. The scanner's screen changed. The signal spike dropped. He let out a long breath. That worked, he said. The voice sounded relieved. You are skilled, it said. Stubborn, he replied. The base shook slightly. Not enough to knock anything over, but enough for him to feel it through the floor. He froze. That's not good. He ran to the door and looked outside through a small viewing window. The sky was still clear, but in the distance he saw a faint line of light moving across the horizon. It was too straight, too smooth to be natural. Something is coming, he said. The voice inside the container grew quiet. Then it spoke again, low and serious. If they find me, they may take me again, or they may take you. He turned back to the container. That's not going to happen, he said. He grabbed a small defense tool from the wall. It was not a weapon of war, just a device meant to scare off wild creatures and disable machines at close range. Against a ship from the stars, it would not do much, but holding it made him feel less helpless. The line of light in the distance grew brighter. It rose into the sky, becoming a shape, then several shapes. Ships, smooth and dark, like pieces of the night itself. The base's systems began to alert. The air pressure shifted slightly as the ships moved closer. They are searching, the voice said. They feel the call, even if it is weak. He moved back to the container and placed both hands on it. I'm not giving you up, he said. We will find another way. He looked around the base. his eyes landing on his small ship parked outside. It was fast, built for long jumps and quick escapes. If he could move the container, he could leave this world before the ships locked onto his exact location. The problem was the weight. The gravity harness could help, but moving it into the ship would take time. Ah! The ships in the sky spread out, their shadows passing over the ground like dark clouds. He made a choice. "I'm going to move you," he said. "It will be rough." "I trust you," the voice replied. He secured the harness around the container again. The soft glow on its surface pulsed faster, like a racing heart. He opened the base door, and the cold wind rushed in, carrying dust and the smell of stone. Step by step, he guided the floating container toward his ship. The shadows of the ships grew darker overhead. The air felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. One of the ships sent a beam of light down to the ground, scanning the surface. It passed close to him, close enough for him to feel a strange warmth brush against his suit. "Move, move," he whispered to himself. He reached the ship and opened the cargo hatch. Carefully, he guided the container inside and secured it. The voice inside remained calm, steady, like it believed in him completely. He climbed into the pilot's seat and powered up the engines. The ship's systems came alive, screens lighting up around him. A warning flashed. The ships in the sky had locked onto his position. He pushed the controls forward. The ship lifted off the ground, dust and stones spinning away beneath it. A beam of light followed, but he was already moving, the engines roaring as he shot into the sky. Stars filled the view ahead as he broke free from the planet's pull. The ships behind him moved to follow, their shapes growing larger on his screen. "Hold on," he said to the container. "This is going to be fast." He set a jump point and activated the drive. Space twisted, light stretching into long lines around him. For a moment, everything felt like it was falling apart. Then it was quiet. The stars settled into new patterns. The ships behind him were gone. He slumped back in his seat, breathing hard. He had no idea where he was now, just somewhere far away from the forgotten world and the danger that followed. The container's glow softened. The voice spoke, filled with something close to wonder. "You risked everything for me," it said. He looked back at the cargo area through the small window. "That's what we do," he said. "We don't leave people behind." Outside the ship, a new stretch of space waited, full of unknown worlds and untold stories. The danger was not over. The signal might still be out there, faint, but alive. Others might still be listening. But for now, the human and the alien traveler were moving forward together, carrying a story that would not stay buried in the dust of a silent planet. The stars outside the ship's wide front window looked calm and distant, like small lights pinned to a dark curtain. The human explorer sat in the pilot's seat, his hands resting on the controls, his breathing finally slowing after the sudden escape. The ship drifted in quiet space, far from the silent world and the searching ships that had followed him. Behind him, in the cargo area, the glowing container rested in its harness. Its soft light filled the small space with a gentle blue glow. The voice inside had not spoken for several minutes, as if it was taking in the strange new place they had arrived. The explorer turned his chair slightly and looked back. "We're safe for now," he said, "but we can't stay still for long." "I can feel the space around us," the voice replied. "It is different here, quieter in a new way." He nodded. "This is deep space. No stations. No trade lanes, just empty distance." The ship's systems hummed around him. He checked the scanners. No ships nearby. no signals chasing them. For the first time since leaving the planet, he allowed himself to relax. He stood and walked back to the container. Up close, the markings on its surface looked brighter, clearer, like they were waking up. The glow traced the strange symbols, turning them into living lines of light. "I've been thinking," he said. "If we're going to free you, we need a place to work. Somewhere with real tools. Somewhere safe."
"Where would that be?" the voice asked. "There's an old human station not far from here," he replied.
"It was built long ago before the main routes shifted. Most people forgot about it. But it should still have power and repair systems." The voice was quiet for a moment. Then it spoke softly. "You trust places that are forgotten." He smiled. "They usually don't ask many questions." He returned to the pilot's seat and set a new course. The ship's engines responded with a low, steady sound as it turned and began to move again. The stars outside shifted slowly, forming new patterns. As they traveled, the voice began to speak more. It shared small details about itself, not just its world, but its own life. It talked about learning to travel between stars, about standing on high platforms and watching ships rise into the sky like falling stars in reverse. It talked about friends and teachers, about long journeys and the feeling of coming home. The explorer listened, sometimes asking simple questions, sometimes just letting the words flow. The more he heard, the more real the voice became. This was not just a mystery in a metal box. This was a person, with memories, hopes, and a future that had been locked away. The station appeared on the scanner as a faint shape, barely more than a shadow against the stars. As they got closer, it became clearer. A wide ring of metal, broken in places, with long arms stretching out like the spokes of a wheel. Some light still glowed along its surface, weak but steady. "Looks like it's still alive," he said. He guided the ship toward one of the open docking ports. The station's systems responded slowly, but the doors opened, allowing him to bring the ship inside. The engines powered down, and the silence of the station settled around them. He stepped out of the ship, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The air inside was thin but safe, filled with the quiet hum of old machines that refused to die. He returned to the cargo area and secured the gravity harness around the container again. "Let's find a workshop," he said. They moved through long, empty halls lined with old signs and faded human languages. Some doors were sealed, others open, revealing rooms filled with dust and forgotten tools. It felt like walking through a memory of a place rather than the place itself. At last he found a large room marked as a repair bay. The lights inside flickered on as he stepped in, revealing work tables, mechanical arms, and power stations. It was not perfect, but it was more than enough. He set the container in the center of the room and began to prepare his tools. The station's systems connected easily to his equipment, providing steady power and access to old human data networks.
"I will try to open you here," he said.
"But I need to understand more about how this was built." "I will help," the voice replied. "I remember some things." They worked together, human hands and alien memory guiding the process. The explorer mapped the layers of the container's systems, while the voice explained what each part was meant to do. Some systems were meant to protect, some were meant to study, and some were meant to make sure the container was never truly silent. Hours passed. The station's light shifted as its slow cycle moved from one phase to another. The explorer grew tired, but he did not stop. At one point, a warning appeared on his screen. A faint signal pulse. Not strong, but real. "They're still listening," he said. "Yes," the voice replied. "The call is quiet, but it carries far." He adjusted the loop device, strengthening the false signal and blocking the real one even more. The warning faded, but he knew it was only a matter of time. As he worked on the final lock, he felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. He had never done anything like this before. Freeing a trapped being from a machine built by another species was not part of any explorer's manual. The voice spoke again, softer now. "If you open this, my life will change. And so will yours." He looked up from his tools.
It already has, he said. He reached the last layer of the system.
The lock was not physical, but a pattern of energy that held the container closed. He needed to break the pattern without causing a surge. He took a deep breath and began. The room filled with light as the system responded. The mechanical arms around the table moved into position, ready to stabilize the energy flow. The air felt warm, like a storm building inside the walls. The container's glow grew brighter. The voice inside grew louder, not in fear, but in anticipation. "Almost," he said, sweat forming on his forehead. The station system suddenly came to life. Alarms flashed on the walls. The signal outside had changed again. Stronger, closer. "They found us," he said. "Then we must finish," the voice replied. He focused on the lock, ignoring the alarms, the flashing lights, and the rising sound of the station's warning systems. His hands moved with careful speed, following the path he had mapped in his mind. With a final adjustment, the pattern broke. The container opened. Light poured out, not harsh, but soft and warm, like the first light of a new day. The explorer stepped back, shielding his eyes. From inside the container, a shape moved. The being that emerged was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like water under starlight. Its eyes were large and bright, filled with emotion and curiosity. It moved slowly, as if learning how to stand in open space again. The explorer felt his breath catch. This was not a voice in a box anymore. This was a living being standing in front of him. "Thank you," it said, now speaking without the help of the container. Its voice was clear and gentle. He nodded, unable to find words for a moment.
You.
Before either of them could say more, the station shook. A deep sound echoed through the metal halls. "They are here," the being said. The explorer turned toward the door. The station's scanner showed ships approaching fast, their shapes cutting through the stars outside. He grabbed his defense tool and stood beside the freed traveler. "We'll face this together," he said. The being placed a hand on the console nearby. "There may be another way," it said. "My people used to speak not with weapons, but with truth." The explorer looked at it, then at the ships on the screen. "Then let's give them a story they can't ignore." Outside the station, the ships slowed, their lights shining through the wide windows of the repair bay. Inside, a human and an alien stood side by side, ready to show the galaxy what it meant to choose courage over fear and connection over control. The moment hung in the air, full of possibility, as the universe waited to see what would happen next. The repair bay of the old station glowed with soft light from the open container and the wide stars beyond the windows. The human explorer stood still for a moment, listening to the deep hum of the station and the quiet breathing of the freed traveler beside him. Outside, the dark shapes of the ships moved slowly, like careful hunters circling their path. The traveler stepped forward, its movements smooth but cautious, like someone learning how to walk in a new world. Its skin reflected the light of the station in gentle waves, and its eyes stayed fixed on the ships outside. "They will not fire yet," it said. "They are watching. They want to understand what changed." The explorer tightened his grip on the small defense tool, even though he knew it would not matter much if the ships decided to act. "Then let's give them something worth understanding," he said. The traveler placed both hands on the central console in the repair bay. Old human screens flickered to life, showing maps of nearby space, power levels, and communication systems that had not been used in years. "This station still has a long-range broadcast system," the traveler said. "It is weak, but if we combine it with my own signal, we can reach far." "Reach who?" the explorer asked.
Everyone, the traveler replied. Not just the ships outside.
"Worlds that listen. People who remember stories." The explorer looked at the screens. The idea was simple but powerful. Instead of hiding, instead of running, they would speak. They would tell what had happened. They would let the truth travel where fear once did. He nodded. "Do it," he said. The traveler began to work, its fingers moving across the controls in patterns that did not match human design. The station responded slowly at first, then faster, as if waking from a long sleep. Lights along the walls grew brighter. The hum of the power system deepened. Outside, one of the ships moved closer, its shadow sliding across the wide window. A beam of light touched the station's outer hull, scanning, searching. "Almost ready," the traveler said. The explorer felt the station tremble slightly as the broadcast system charged. The air seemed to vibrate, like a storm building without wind or rain. The traveler looked at him.
Will you speak with me? It asked. He blinked.
"Me? Yes," it said. "They need to hear a human voice, too." He took a slow breath. He was not a leader, not a speaker. He was just someone who dug in the dirt of forgotten worlds and listened to old machines. But now the moment asked for more. "I'll try," he said. The system signaled that it was ready. A soft tone filled the room. The traveler began to speak first. Its voice was calm and clear, carrying a gentle strength that filled the space. "I am a traveler who was taken and sealed away," it said. "I was left in the dark, buried under silence, while the stars moved on without me." The explorer stepped closer, listening. "I was freed by a human who heard my voice and chose not to turn away," the traveler continued. "This human did not know who I was, did not know what danger might come. But still, this human helped." The explorer swallowed. His turn came. He leaned toward the console. "My name doesn't matter," he said. "I'm just someone who looks for lost things. I found a voice in the ground and I couldn't walk away. I believe no one should be locked in the dark and forgotten." The signal left the station, moving out into space, riding waves of light and energy. The ships outside slowed even more, their lights dimming slightly, as if they were listening. The traveler spoke again. "To those who fear humans, and to those who fear what is different, hear this. I stand free not because of power, but because of choice. A human chose to help instead of control." Silence followed, heavy and deep. For a long moment, nothing happened. The explorer's heart beat loud in his chest. He wondered if the words had reached anyone at all, or if they had been lost in the wide emptiness between stars. Then one of the ships outside changed its position. Its lights shifted from cold white to a softer glow. Another ship followed, and then another. A new signal appeared on the station's screen. Not a warning. A response. The traveler moved closer to the console, its eyes wide. "They are answering," it said. The explorer watched as symbols appeared on the screen, slowly translating through the station's old systems. "We hear you," the message read. "We did not know." The room felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. The traveler spoke into the system again. "Now you know," it said. "And knowing gives you a choice." Outside, the ships began to move away from the station, not in retreat, but in calm, steady motion. Their shapes grew smaller against the stars. The explorer let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. He leaned against the work table, feeling the tension leave his body. "Ah!" The traveler turned to him. "You changed more than my life," it said. "You changed a story that many worlds believed." He shook his head slightly. "I just did what felt right." The traveler smiled in a way that was not quite human, but close enough to understand. That is what makes it powerful. The station grew quiet again, the alarms fading, the screens returning to their steady glow. Outside, space stretched wide and calm. The explorer walked over to one of the windows and looked out at the stars. "What will you do now?" he asked. The traveler joined him. "I will go home," it said. "My people will want to know what happened. They will want to hear about you." He chuckled softly. "I don't think I'm that interesting. You crossed the stars to dig in the dust of a dead world," the traveler replied. "You listened to a voice no one else could hear."
That is interesting.
They stood together in silence for a while, watching the slow movement of distant light. The explorer thought about his ship, waiting in the docking bay, thought about the long roads between stars and the quiet places where stories slept, waiting to be found. "You can travel with me for part of the way," he said. "The station has an old jump gate, but it's not very stable. My ship is safer." The traveler nodded. "I would like that." They prepared to leave the repair bay, turning off systems and securing the tools. The container that had once been a prison now stood open and empty, just a piece of metal that no longer held a life inside. As they walked back through the quiet halls of the station, the explorer felt a strange sense of peace. The place no longer felt like a forgotten shell. It felt like a point where two paths had crossed and changed. They reached the ship and climbed aboard. The explorer took his seat, while the traveler sat in the small area behind him, looking out through a side window. The engines powered up, and the ship lifted gently away from the station. The old metal ring drifted back into the darkness, its lights fading until it was just another shape among the stars. The explorer set a course toward a bright cluster of systems, places where people lived, traded, and told stories. As they traveled, the traveler spoke softly. "My people once feared humans because they thought you only brought change through force." He glanced back. And now, the traveler said, "They will hear a different story. A story about a human who brought change through kindness." The explorer smiled. Time passed as the ship moved through space. They shared more stories about worlds seen and worlds dreamed of, about mistakes made and chances taken. At last, they reached a point where their paths would split. The traveler's home system glowed on the screen, a cluster of warm light in the dark. "This is where I go," the traveler said. The explorer nodded. "I'm glad I found you," he said. "And I am glad you are the one who did," the traveler replied. The traveler stood and placed a small device on the control panel. "This is a marker," it said. "It will let my people find you, if you ever want to find us." The explorer picked it up, turning it in his hand. "Maybe someday," he said. The traveler moved toward the ship's exit hatch. "No matter where you go," it said, "your story will travel faster." The explorer watched as the traveler stepped into a small pod and launched toward the distant stars of its home. The light of the pod grew smaller, then vanished among the many lights of the galaxy. The ship felt quiet again, but not empty. The explorer turned back to his controls and set a new course, not for any specific world, but for the wide unknown between them. The places where lost signals waited. The places where voices might still be buried in silence. As the ship moved forward, the stars stretched into lines of light, and the story of a human who chose to listen carried on, traveling from world to world, reminding anyone who heard it that sometimes the strongest thing in the universe is not power, but the simple choice to care.